The perfect person to review the first episode, her anti-woke sister, Samantha Markle, who joins me live from the US. Samantha, I have to say, this was one of the most nauseating, horrible things I've ever had to listen to in my entire life.
Meghan Markle was never supposed to have secrets. Her image, clean, glossy, perfectly mapped out from start to finish. No messy chapters, no hidden turns, no dark corners. At least that's how the story was sold. From high school in Los Angeles to a gap year full of growth and soul-searching, then straight to Northwestern University and the bright lights of acting, it all looked smooth and carefully packaged. But Samantha Markle says that whole timeline is fiction. For years, Meghan's biography has been presented as polished and inspiring, a young woman chasing dreams, building her future step by step. Then Samantha drops one explosive claim that flips the table. She says Meghan was married long before Trevor Engelson, not just married, but allegedly pregnant and allegedly a mother, before Hollywood ever came calling. That's not a small detail. That's a whole different storyline. At first it sounds harsh, maybe even unbelievable. Critics call it a rumor meant to hurt, but online detectives didn't stop there. They started digging into Meghan's official timeline, and that's when people noticed something strange, a 12-month gap between 1994 and 1995 that's never been clearly explained. One full year that feels blank. And inside that silence, Samantha insists, is where the real story lives. A quiet Las Vegas wedding, a sealed annulment, and whispers about a child raised by another family. Supporters push back hard, saying there's no solid proof. Still, questions keep circling. Meghan once described her gap year as a time of travel and exploration. She spoke about growth and new experiences, but classmates from Immaculate Heart High School have said they don't remember hearing about any overseas adventure. No exchange program records surfaced, no photos from Europe, no snapshots from South America, nothing that usually follows a young student documenting big trips. That silence sparked speculation online. Was the gap year really about travel, or was something else happening behind the scenes? Then there's the name that keeps popping up in these claims, Joe Giuliano, described as a teenage friend from Chicago. Reports suggest that if a marriage happened, it wasn't flashy or grand, just a small chapel near the Las Vegas Strip, a couple of relatives, quick paperwork, done fast, quiet. Here's where it gets more intense. Thousands of Vegas weddings stay on public record forever. They're easy to trace. But this alleged one, supposedly gone. Clark County officials have declined to confirm or deny anything specific, which only adds to the mystery. And critics ask, if it was just a youthful mistake, why seal records? Why keep it buried? Others argue sealing documents can be routine and doesn't automatically prove scandal. Still, the online conversation hasn't cooled off. By the summer of 1995, Meghan appears at Northwestern University, starting a brand new chapter far from Los Angeles, far from Las Vegas, and far from the Giuliano name that stayed silent for nearly 30 years. A clean reset, a fresh image, a future that looked perfectly aligned.
We're not raised in a vacuum. There are others who help us along the way, who support us, who love us, who bring us up, and who pay for everything that gives us that platform, which was our fathers. So we have to include the men.
And whether these claims are truth, rumor, or something in between, one thing is clear, that missing year still has people talking. Yet the questions refuse to die. If Samantha is telling the truth, then that so-called gap year wasn't some soft transition between girlhood and independence. It would have been the year Meghan allegedly became a wife, and possibly a mother, and then stepped away from both roles completely. That's not a small rewrite of history. That's a total reset button. And if the base of her life story shifts even a little, people start wondering what else might move with it. When a biography is sold as spotless and inspiring, even one crack makes the whole thing shake. And the internet? It never lets mysteries rest. The second Samantha Markle's claims started circulating, online users jumped into action. Receipts, screenshots, old yearbooks, archived posts. Within hours, hashtags like hashtag Meghan's missing year and hashtag Vegas wedding were climbing on TikTok and X. One creator stitched together photos from Meghan's high school graduation in June 1994 with her earliest known Northwestern appearances in 1995. The caption was simple: "Where was Meghan?" That short clip pulled in over 2 million views in a single weekend. Threads exploded with theories. Some users claimed Clark County's refusal to comment on any alleged annulment records felt suspicious. Others pushed back, saying privacy laws exist for a reason and silence doesn't equal guilt. Still, the speculation kept rolling. People started digging everywhere: Las Vegas chapel listings, property records, even genealogy sites connected to the Giuliano name. It turned into a full-blown digital scavenger hunt. For Meghan supporters, this was uncomfortable territory. Many dismissed Samantha's comments as bitterness, pointing to her long history of public criticism. "This is just Samantha being Samantha," one fan wrote. Another added, "She's trying to cash in on Meghan's fame." But even some neutral observers admitted the missing year felt odd. In an era where even small school trips leave behind photos and paper trails, how does an entire year stay invisible? That question alone kept the conversation alive. Media outlets couldn't resist the drama either. A British tabloid splashed a bold headline asking, "Did Meghan Markle hide a teenage marriage?" American shows were more careful with their wording, but the curiosity was clear. One morning, host joked, "If Vegas vows don't stay in Vegas, what else comes out?" The laughter felt tight, almost cautious, because even unproven claims can stick when they tap into public doubt about image control and storytelling. Then came the memes, and they were ruthless. Side-by-side posts compared jars from Meghan's As Ever brand with glowing Las Vegas chapel signs. One viral caption read, "From I Do to As Ever. Meghan really brands everything." Another user edited clips from The Hangover to hint that her missing year was less about self-discovery and more about a wild Vegas chapter. It was messy, it was dramatic, and it spread fast.
It's rather lofty to suggest the ability to align with, issues of womanhood and suffering. On the grounds that, and she did bring up the fact that, she went to Immaculate Heart.
Still, not everyone was cheering it on. Some fans asked a fair question. Is it right to dissect alleged teenage choices from 30 years ago? Should old chapters, proven or not, define someone forever? But even that debate circled back to the same tension point. If there's no truth to the rumors, critics ask, why not release clear documentation and shut it down? So far, Meghan hasn't directly addressed the claims. And in the age of nonstop commentary, silence doesn't quiet the noise. It amplifies it. That tension between silence and speculation didn't just simmer, it exploded. What started as one sister's accusation turned into a full-scale internet investigation. Regular people felt like detectives, convinced they could be the ones to uncover Meghan's so-called missing year. Message boards lit up, live streams popped off. Everyone thought they were one clue away from cracking the case. And as the noise grew louder, it started to feel inevitable that someone from the inside would eventually speak up. The biggest twist didn't come from TikTok creators or Twitter threads. It came when whispers from people allegedly connected to the Giuliano circle began floating around. A Chicago-based commentator claimed that certain relatives remembered a small Las Vegas ceremony back in 1994. No flashy details, no dramatic storytelling, just calm, steady recollections that made people pause. One relative allegedly described it as over in half an hour, no photos, no fuss. Another was quoted years later saying, "She was Meghan's before she was ours." Those words hit hard online, not because they proved anything legally, but because they seemed to line up with the timeline gaps people had been circling for weeks. Suddenly, Meghan's move from Los Angeles to Northwestern didn't look random to some observers. Commentators began asking if the Chicago connection between Meghan and Joe Giuliano played a role in her college choice. Reports suggest Joe had deep ties to the area, with family roots in Chicago's Italian-American community. To online sleuths, that detail wasn't small. It felt strategic. Then British tabloids jumped in heavy. One outlet claimed a former Giuliano neighbor remembered a baby girl entering the household in 1995. The neighbor allegedly said, "We never knew whose child she was, but we were told she belonged to family." That quote spread fast. There were no public adoption filings tied to the rumor, no visible custody cases, just stories passed quietly over time. And in the digital age, even whispers travel at lightning speed. Some commentators noted that informal family arrangements, if they ever happen, don't always leave neat paperwork trails. They leave memories. They leave private understanding. That alone fueled more debate. U.S. media critics began drawing comparisons to other celebrities whose early chapters were tightly controlled. One podcast host referenced long-protected relationship rumors around Beyoncé. Another brought up Britney Spears' short Las Vegas annulment years ago. The broader point wasn't about proving anything specific. It was about how celebrity image building often involves careful editing of the past. And to critics, Meghan's situation seemed to fit that narrative a little too neatly. Even legal voices weighed in. A Nevada attorney speaking on a live stream explained that annulment records can be sealed under certain privacy conditions. The attorney noted that sealed files typically involve sensitive factors and formal petitions.
And that they were empowered at Immaculate Heart by the nuns to be independent women. But wait a minute, who paid for Immaculate Heart? That was all my dad, so let's face it.
If a record is sealed, it's done intentionally, the lawyer said. That clip went viral in hours, reposted with captions like, "So what was being protected?" Through all of it, Meghan stayed silent. No interviews, no official denials, no detailed rebuttals. And that silence became its own headline. Reports suggested that if there was ever any private agreement among families, it remained just that, private. None of the claims have been independently confirmed through public documentation. Still, the conversation didn't die down. It evolved. Because at the center of every theory, every repost, every debate, there was one powerful thing driving it all: unanswered questions. They made that missing year impossible to ignore. The conversation shifted fast. It wasn't just about whether Samantha's claims were bitter or personal anymore. Now people were asking a bigger question. Was this whole storm pulling back the curtain on something that had been sitting in plain sight all along? By the time talk of Meghan's missing year reached mainstream outlets, the story had grown way beyond a sibling feud. What started as family drama was suddenly rippling through Hollywood circles, royal commentary panels, and even legal live streams. In the UK, royal analysts speculated that palace aides were likely keeping a close eye on the narrative. One broadcaster noted, "This isn't the kind of storyline they want resurfacing, especially when Meghan and Prince Harry have built their post-royal careers around shaping and controlling their own narrative." Reports also suggested that executives tied to major streaming investments were paying attention. When millions are poured into documentaries and brand deals, optics matter. Commentators questioned whether audiences would still embrace a polished, carefully curated story if a major chapter of Meghan's past had allegedly been left out. Fair or not, perception drives headlines. Hollywood observers pointed out that projects like Archetypes and the As Ever brand lean heavily on authenticity. The selling point has always been transparency, growth, empowerment. Critics argued that if sealed records or hidden chapters ever surfaced publicly, it could shake that foundation overnight. As one media analyst put it during a panel discussion, there's a fine line between reinvention as empowerment and reinvention as deception. That clip spread across social feeds within hours. Online pressure kept building. A digital petition began circulating, calling for Clark County to clarify whether any annulment records tied to Meghan existed. Within days, it reportedly gathered tens of thousands of signatures. Others tagged investigative reporters and tabloids, pushing them to either confirm or debunk the rumors once and for all. In private Facebook groups and online forums, speculation went even further. Some users debated whether an alleged daughter, if one existed, would ever speak publicly.
Were you surprised, Samantha, that your sister tried to make out that she's some sort of repressed victim?
Well, I gotta say, I think I'm in agreement with the world.
Photos of women from Chicago were shared and compared, with commenters pointing out perceived resemblances. Each post triggered long threads of theories, counter-arguments, and heated exchanges. Legal commentators added caution to the mix. Some noted that even if past records were sealed for privacy reasons, silence itself isn't evidence of wrongdoing. However, they also pointed out that ongoing speculation can become reputationally damaging if not addressed clearly. Through it all, one thing stayed constant. The questions weren't fading. They were multiplying. Some insiders started whispering that this drama could stretch far beyond gossip blogs. A few commentators suggested that if these claims ever gained real traction, they could resurface in future legal disputes where credibility gets picked apart line by line. In high-profile cases, reputation matters. Every past statement, every timeline detail can be examined under a microscope, and that's where the domino effect talk began. Then something unexpected happened. Mainstream business outlets picked up the story. One financial columnist wrote that Meghan's as ever brand leans heavily on stability, trust, and a polished life narrative. At the same time, Prince Harry's ongoing legal battles often center on moral positioning and public sympathy. If this claim gains traction, the columnist noted, it's not just personal drama. It could shift negotiating leverage. That line spread fast across media circles. Suddenly, this wasn't framed as simple family tension. Commentators argued it could affect institutional partnerships, brand confidence, even long-term Hollywood positioning. Fair or not, perception drives deals. And in entertainment, executives watch everything. The silence that once looked strategic started to look risky to critics. Each unanswered question seemed to amplify the noise. What began as royal-adjacent gossip now felt like a wider cultural debate. Fans and critics alike started framing it as something bigger, a referendum on reinvention itself. Is it fair to hold someone accountable for choices made at 18? Or does the act of sealing records, reshaping timelines, and refusing to address speculation create more suspicion than the original event ever would? That question hit deep online. Cultural commentators pointed out that modern audiences celebrate reinvention all the time, new eras, new identities, fresh starts. But they also demand transparency. One critic explained during a live stream, reinvention works when people feel included in the truth. If they sense editing instead of evolution, trust erodes. That quote bounced across platforms within hours. Comparisons started flying, not about identical situations, but about patterns. Lance Armstrong's fall from grace after years of denial, Milli Vanilli's lip-syncing scandal, Rachel Dolezal's public collapse when her narrative unraveled. The connection critics made wasn't about details, it was about what happens when a carefully built public story meets contradiction. Reports suggested that Hollywood executives weren't pulling contracts or canceling projects, but insiders claimed they were watching closely, observing, waiting. In big money industries, silence can buy time, but it can also raise eyebrows. And as the weeks rolled on, one reality became clear. The longer the silence holds, the louder the speculation grows. His story has turned into a full-blown case study in how digital culture refuses to let anything slide. One allegation sparked viral hashtags, TikTok breakdowns, old yearbook screenshots, neighborhood whispers, and even legal live-stream debates. What started as Samantha Markle's accusation snowballed into something way bigger than anyone expected. Even critics who questioned her credibility admitted the momentum took on a life of its own. As one media analyst put it, "This isn't Samantha versus Meghan anymore. It's about whether silence works in an era where receipts last forever." And that line hit hard. Now here's the part people call the most unsettling possibility. Somewhere in Chicago, there could be a woman in her late 20s living a completely normal life, either unaware of the online speculation or fully aware and choosing privacy. No confirmed evidence supports that claim, but the rumor alone has fueled endless threads. And online culture doesn't wait quietly. Users are already circulating speculative photos with captions like, "When the daughter speaks, the world will listen." That's how intense the anticipation has become. Whether the allegations are true or completely unfounded, the public appetite for a dramatic reveal is real. At this point, the narrative isn't even centered on proof. It's centered on the question mark. Meghan's once carefully polished biography now carries that lingering shadow of doubt in certain corners of the internet. And in celebrity culture, sometimes the question becomes louder than any answer. Silence creates curiosity. Curiosity creates clicks. And clicks keep the story alive. So now viewers are left with a bigger thought. If a missing year can trigger this level of investigation, what other Hollywood stories are sitting quietly in sealed files, waiting for the right hashtag to blow them open? If you want the breakdowns that powerful PR machines hope stay buried, hit subscribe, like, and share. Drop your thoughts in the comments and stay locked in, because if silence ever cracks, we'll be right here covering what happens next.